So you want to use Unity and GitHub? Let's talk about that. Alright, we found ourselves back in Unity once more, and in this short tutorial, we're going to be talking about how you can use Unity and GitHub. And for this, you're going to need two things. Number one, you're going to need a GitHub account. So simply go to github.com, create an account. It is an absolutely reputable site. It is basically the industry standard in terms of version control system. So that is step number one. Step number two, you're going to download the GitHub desktop GUI over here. I highly recommend you use this if you're not familiar with any type of GitHub or Git version control system. This is extremely easy to use, and I'm going to show you how you can basically set up a repository for your project. So just download it, install this onto your PC like any other program, and once it's launched, we're going to continue. So while for you, it's going to look a little bit different, there's two things you want to do once this has been created. The first one is to open your project folder, and basically you want to copy over the path over here to your project folder. That's number one. Step number two, inside of the program, you want to go to File and then New Repository. Under the local path, you want to paste in the path that we've just created. For the repository name over here, we can actually just put in an X or something like that because, and this is a very important thing, usually your repository name cannot have any spaces. So if we were to create the repository for the Unity space evergreen space tutorials, that would fail and it would create a new folder called Unity-evergreen-tutorials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a repository instead of a new folder, and then we're just going to move the files back one repository, and then you can also have your folder with spaces, no issue whatsoever. One incredibly important thing under the git ignore, you want to choose a Unity right here. Otherwise you will run into severe issues. Do not forget this. In my case, for the license, I'm going to choose the MIT license because this is the license that all of my code and the projects are basically licensed under. But you can, of course, take a look at other things or just choose none to keep it all rights reserved. We're going to create this repository and then we're going to reopen our folder, and you're going to find a new X directory right here. And you're just going to select all of the different assets and move them up one folder right here. We can now delete the X folder. And if we now navigate back to the GitHub desktop over here, you can see that it cannot find the X. What we're going to do is we're going to locate this by just once again going back to the path that we've just copied over here. We're going to select this folder. It's going to find this and it's going to say, hey, these are all new things. Let me just add them. And this is exactly right. So in the case of the 5 ways of movement repository, it is so many things over here because I have so many assets for the tiles in the background. That's just the reason why there's so many different change files. Usually, if you have an empty project or a project that's not, too big, you shouldn't have that many assets and files over here. But overall, this should be pretty okay. But now we can go to the summary. We can call this something like the initial commit over here. We can commit to main. It's going to commit the changes that it has detected over here. So it's going to make sort of a snapshot of this. And then we can publish the repository to GitHub. So right now, your changes are saved on your PC, but you now want to go to the publish repository over here, and you want to publish this to github.com. Now, in this case, I'm already logged in. You will probably get a prompt to log in over here. So simply log into GitHub, and then a window similar to this will appear as well. In this case, I'm going to call this Unity-evergreen-tutorials because this is the name that's going to appear on github.com. That's going to be generated with the dashes anyway, so that's going to be fine. In my case, I'm going to keep this code private, and if you are in any organizations, you can also publish those on the organization. But in this case, you probably don't have any, so you can just hit publish repository. And once you hit publish repository, it's now going to be uploaded to GitHub itself. And once this is done, you can see some changes over here. And now I can actually click on the view on GitHub right here, and it's going to open exactly this project. And this is also going to be the project that is going to be available to you in the description of each of my tutorials. Basically, this is going to be the evergreen tutorials. If there's ever going to be another series, then it might have their own project and their own GitHub repository. But this is basically where it's going to be at. And if I were to go to the assets and, for example, to the scripts, you can see the player movement script. I can basically take a look at this, and I can take a look at the code and understand it, copy it over, and take a look at that. So that is pretty awesome indeed. If I now were to make some changes in my project, so for example, I go into my player movement script and I'm like, you know what? I want to add some comments over here, right? So I just wanted to make sure that people understand, oh, this is what this is, right? This is the 2D vector is going to be this. So let's just add those comments over here. I've already prepared those, of course. There we go. We're going to add the comment to the fixed update right here. And that is pretty much going to be the comments that I wanted to add. We're going to save this. If I now open the GitHub desktop again, you can see it basically detects, hey, there have been changes made in the player movement.cs file. And what you want to do is you basically want to commit and then push this. So those are two different steps. The first step is to basically note, hey, these are the changes. Please keep those in mind. So we're just going to say added some comments. We're going to commit this to main, and you can see now this has been committed, but it has not yet been pushed to GitHub. So if we take a look at GitHub again, and we were to reload this, you can see it's all still the same. Nothing has changed over here. To actually upload this to GitHub, we wanted to click the push origin button. And once we click this, it has now been pushed to GitHub. And if we were to reload the site again, you can now see that we added some comments. This is the new commit that we've just basically pushed, and that is going to be that. Now, there's of course 1,000 more things that you can do with Git. You can create different branches that people can work on, that you can then split, and you can pull requests into each other. You can add issues. You can even make a wiki here. Those are all things that we're not going to deal with in this tutorial. This is just a basic setup, how you can make a Unity project and basically set it up with GitHub. That's all we're doing here. And this is pretty much everything you're going to need for the beginning. Right, what else happens in the beginning? That is right, a start menu. And you can see how you can create a start menu for Unity in this video right here. Hope to see you there. So yeah.